My role with Cochlear is coordinator of rehabilitation and habilitation for Central and Eastern Europe. This is a role I have been doing for 10 years now, and I really enjoy the opportunity to interact with professionals and parents working with children with cochlear implants in many different countries, in many different contexts. Well, apart from my professional role, I'm also the parent of a cochlear implant recipient. She's no longer a child. My daughter Holly, next year, will be 30 years since she received her cochlear implant. She was one of the first children in the world to get a cochlear implant, and that's how I became involved in this field. And I just know how wonderful the cochlear implant potential is, and how important the role of the parent and of the professional is in helping that child reach their auditory potential with that new technology. With all of the information that we have today, since a child like Holly got her cochlear implant 30 years ago, there has been so much progress and research in the field of cochlear implants, but also in auditory rehabilitation. And I think the cochlear implant has totally changed the way we teach deaf children and our expectations for what they can achieve. Everything has changed with the cochlear implant and with other technology, actually, because now, as well as the cochlear implant, we are also, with universal screening technology, we are able to identify children so much earlier. So with early identification and the intervention with the cochlear implant, the world is completely opened up for a hearing impaired child. Well, the greatest discovery is that a profoundly deaf child can learn to listen and speak, and it's entirely realistic for a very young child to get a cochlear implant by their first or second year, and with auditory rehabilitation they have every opportunity to develop normal speech and language, and to then go on to attend a regular school and achieve their own potential, whatever they want to do. So it's, and I see that every day in what my daughter does today. You know, she's a very successful corporate lawyer, and she says herself that, you know, there's no way that she could do what she does without the cochlear implant. I think there's two really important factors to this, and you know, one is from the professional side and one is from the parent side. And I think the whole field of deaf education has changed because of this new auditory potential that technology has provided. So it's really, from the professional side, it really is a call to change the way we teach deaf children because they can hear. From the parent side, when we consider universal screening and the fact that we're identifying a child at less than 1 year old, and they are then able to hear, the main work, the main language model is the family. So it's really important that the family is actively involved in this process, which is a change to the way deaf education was accepted in the past. And the other really important thing, and I keep talking about this in every country that I go, is that everyone who's involved with that child needs to know and believe in that child's auditory potential and to really use it. Because when a child gets a cochlear implant, that's only the first step. That's only providing access to the brain. It's everything that we do afterwards to focus on the auditory stimulation of the brain that then produces the comprehension and the language and the speaking as a normal developmental process. Well, I think the important thing in this auditory habilitation process, which is, dealing with a young child in that critical development years, the role of the professional is to guide and coach the parent. The parent, we want to be a parent. We don't want the parent to become a teacher at home and to try to instruct. And I think that's the most vital role, is that we want the parent to be spontaneous, to enjoy their child, and it's all about that natural parent-child interaction. So all of the work with auditory habilitation is about having fun with your child, sing songs, play games. Even before the child gets a cochlear implant, they might not hear everything that you say, but they are still interacting with you, and that's the most important thing. That is the most important role of the parent. Interact with the child. It's about attachment, the bond, and it develops using all our senses. But after the cochlear implant, then we really need to focus on using that same process, but really emphasising the auditory input to the brain. But if we're talking about evaluating and monitoring a child's progress, then that's definitely the role of the professional to be the guide, and a guide needs to have a plan or a map. So it's really up to the professional to be aware of what's the next steps. What are we planning? Where do we expect this child to be in 1 month, in 3 months? And it's based on this plan, which is based on the normal milestones of development, that the professional will then guide and instruct the parent about what may be the next important goals. It really is, it does often happen because, of course, every parent wants the best for their child. So if they think that doing more of what the professional or the clinician does, they may think that that's better. But it's really the job of the professional to be guiding the parent in what they do and how they do it at home. So again, it comes back to that the collaboration between the parent and the professional. Because for a child to successfully achieve age-appropriate spoken language before school age, we really need each other. The professional cannot achieve this goal by themselves, and neither can the parent. But an effective working partnership is the best way. I think that effective parent-professional partnership is definitely ideal. And remember that we're talking about the developmental, you know, from birth to 5. And it's really those crucial years of language development. It's those years when all of us learnt our mother tongue. And where did we learn our mother tongue, our first language? At our mother's knee, at home, following around, listening and watching daily routines. When we eat, we sleep, we get dressed, we wash. We do these things every day. They're repeated. The language of the daily routine is repeated. And it's life. And that's how we learn our language. So that's why we need the parents, and not just the parents, we need the whole family involvement. And it's also where the language is spontaneous. It's not instructional language, which is what you get when you come to a clinic. So, and that's where through listening, we develop that normal intonation in our voice. It's by listening and being involved in daily routines at home. So it does seem easy. It seems very straightforward and simple, but it's also the most effective. I think, well, I've just spent a couple of days visiting other cities, talking to other professionals. And they're constantly in the discussion is the issue of signing. And I know I've had quite a few discussions, and I think it's really, my replies constantly come back to the fact that we need to consider the auditory potential of the child that we're working with. So for a professional, if you have a client family, the child has recently got a cochlear implant. This is a device that allows the child to hear. So, and the hearing potential is all developed in the brain, and it's developed through a focus on auditory input, providing meaning and context to sound around you, which is also how we develop normal spoken language. So I think it's every professional's responsibility, and it's not just in Czech Republic. This is an issue in many countries, that a professional working in any field, we need to keep updated. You know, we need to follow the latest trends, what's changing, what's the new technology, what's the new potentials for our clients, and to adapt our practice to be able to give the best outcome for each child that comes to us with a cochlear implant. So I do feel that there is a logical, rational explanation for focused auditory habilitation for every child who has a cochlear implant, and for the professional, you know, a responsibility to appropriately guide that family to the best outcome for that child, which is to develop spoken language through listening. Well, I'm not familiar with, you know, the whole system, but and I'm only speaking from the context of a child who has that technology has given a child good auditory potential. So this is speaking about cochlear implants, but also about hearing aids today. The world has changed for hearing impaired children. You know, they have a totally new auditory potential, and I think that every professional and every institute in any country should be changing looking at how they can change their practice to adapt to this new auditory potential and to deliver the best service to support the families. In Australia, I have seen over many years all of our early intervention centres have changed their approach. Over the years they have adapted to become more and more auditory and totally have redesigned their approach and their protocols to match the changing world. Well, I don't know. I think to any parent of a child who has a cochlear implant today, all I can say is that you're very lucky that there is so much available for you and your child to address your child's hearing impairment. And it's very important that if your child gets a cochlear implant, that you believe and really invest time in developing that your child's auditory potential. Play, sing, engage with your child at home through listening. Focus on their listening, because that's how they will learn language, that's how they will then be able to go to school, be successful in whatever field in education that they choose, and to live a normal life, develop their own true potential. And the most important message for every parent is have fun doing it. Please, and play with your children and enjoy your children.